Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the seminar of the Research Center of Kabbalah. It is indeed a pleasure, and sometimes I'd even kind of like to admit that it is a privilege to be with you here this evening and to share some of the basic principles of Kabbalah. Some 17 years ago, the Research Center took that daring step to open the doors of Kabbalah for all those that yearn and seek to catch a glimpse of the beauty of the world of Kabbalah. In spite of the intense criticism that was unleashed against me, I do not regret, nor have I ever regretted, this important step in my life. Yes, it is true. Rabbi Isaac Luria, the author of the Kitvei Ari, some of the most important concepts that deal with the Age of Aquarius, along with the text of Kabbalah, the Zohar, was considered far too holy for these important teachings and documents to be brought to the man in the street. No, that was blasphemy, claimed some. And yet, it was Rabbi Avraham Azulai, some 250 years ago, that declared, "Sell the Kabbalah in the marketplace." And so some 250 years later, or after 17 years, I am proud to say that we're presenting another seminar for you people out there. For those of you without any prior education, for those of you who haven't been studying their Talmud or Zohar for some 30 years, but you do have one thing in common, and that is you're all searching. You're looking for a meaningful existence, and that is your entrance to this seminar. There's been very little change in the Age of Aquarius. In fact, I believe the only significant movement that seems to take off is in high tech. Along with this movement, with the dawn of the Age of Aquarius, there is a widespread, determined search for some answers to our existence. The rush is already underway. However, make no mistake as to its impact. While it is true that never before in history has the need for and the effort to seek a more meaningful explanation to our essence been as prevalent as it is today, nevertheless, for the most part, the majority of humankind does not seek change or a rerouting of our thinking. Who knows? maybe chaos, pain, and suffering needs to be part of the universal landscape. But this, of course, raises an all-important question. How can the Lord stand on the sidelines and watch as mankind passes through one holocaust followed by another? Furthermore, what hope lays in the future for mankind when his past performance and track record has been a dismal failure? Where do we go from here? From a Kabbalistic perspective of our universe, the splitting of the atom was seen as the first step, the initial thought in man's effort to split and fragment the universe. The atom, as the Kabbalists observed it, was one of the most beautiful, significant sources of energy when it was put to use as it was originally intended, to be a complete, unified whole. What we have experienced as a result of the splitting of the atom, and we haven't seen the end of it yet, has been that war hasn't come to an end. Suffering in this world seems to be more prevalent than ever before. And so, I repeat again, that it appears that high tech has really taken off and has made its mark in its advancement in this age of Aquarius. High tech. When did this age of Aquarius begin? For some, it began with the birth of Rabbi Isaac Luria some 400 years ago, and at another development stage, along with Rabbi Avraham Azulai some 250 years ago. Has there been high tech in the past? Has there been a civilization as ours, with the enormous strides that we witness in our own time? According to the Zohar, the story told in the Bible in Genesis concerning the Tower of Babel indicated this very high tech that we witness today. What were they attempting to do? To build a tower that could reach the heavens. Some say that tower reached 1,000 stories. Some might even claim 2,000 stories. My, that's really high tech. Today, our tallest buildings rarely ever reach more than 100 or 105 stories. And in the immediate future, there is no horizon for any further advancement in that particular field. And yet, peoples in the time of the Tower of the Babel had this kind of ingenuity, knowledge, foresight to construct buildings or a building of this nature and size. However, something went wrong. That is the kind of implication that the Bible in Genesis seems to make us understand. There was something wrong. What was wrong? Advancement? Is there something wrong with that? But before we try to make an attempt to explore what might have gone wrong, that these people suffered the wrath of the Lord, let us investigate just what that power was all about. A power that could accomplish such incredible feats that we in the 20th century cannot boast of. And the Zohar, in raising this question as to what was this profound power, answers the power of the Aleph Bet. At the end of Parshat Noah in the Zohar, the fact that these people knew the power of the Aleph Bet, in spite of the fact that they were idol worshippers. They were idol worshippers, and therefore suffered the scorn and wrath of the Lord. They nevertheless had full control over the actions of the Lord. And here the Zohar raises that incredible idea of how can these people hold control over the cosmos. They were idol worshippers. And you know what the Zohar responds to that question? There was harmony amongst them. Because they were totally in tune with the concept of love thy neighbor, they were therefore in control of the cosmos and the entire universe, and the Lord's hands were tied. Do these people still exist today? In my book, Wheels of a Soul, I refer to a Zohar in Leviticus, page 6, that describes Atlantis. Long before Plato's description of Atlantis, we have the incredible story of one of the students of the Zohar who was traveling one day in a boat, and the boat overturned, and there he was, swimming down towards the bottom of the sea, and lo and behold, he came upon a community of people who were living as the fish in the sea, praying, conducting a lifestyle as if they were on land. They knew, these people, the Tower of Babel, knew and understood the knowledge of the universe. What was their power? The Hebrew language, the Aleph. For it says in Genesis in Noah, there was yet only one language, and that language was the Hebrew language. And because they understood love thy neighbor, practiced it, the Lord had no choice in his attempt to prevent these people from carrying through some awful thoughts for civilization. He created a bilbul. That means that these people lost the recognition of the Hebrew language and were dispersed, and each of these different nations, as they were dispersed, began to speak a different language. And once they began to speak different languages, they no longer could understand each other. And because they could not understand each other, their intrinsic power of love thy neighbor came to an end. But how could idol worshippers ever come to an understanding of love thy neighbor? We look upon idol worshippers as evil people for some, fools for others. But yet, these very same people believed in the concept of love thy neighbor. Strange, for in modern day society, with all preaching and with all our desires to bring a united nations, we somehow haven't found the formula by which we can live with each other. And here we're talking about idol worshippers, people who worship the stars, people who believed in the power of the stars, believed in astrology. Is that possible? And the Zohar answers, they knew what kept the universe together. They were simply practical people. They knew that through the process of love thy neighbor, plus and minus, which was an absolute necessity, an intrinsic characteristic of the cosmic bond, this was the power, the unification of plus and minus, no less and no different than the electric bulb that provides energy and is a source of power. This, by and within itself, was necessary. And therefore, you could be an idol worshiper and at the same time understand the necessity for love thy neighbor. It was practical. But at that point, universal language came to an end. Let us raise another question at this point. Why Hebrew? What is language? For most of us, language is a procedure by which to communicate and by which we can make ourselves understood. We also are familiar with those kind of idioms of power of words, energy transfers, influencing people. Language also serves as an energy transfer. And according to the Zohar, there is no transfer as that which has come about through the power of the Aleph. We are going to have a seminar on the Aleph by which we will understand how the people of the Tower of Babel could literally control their destiny as well as the cosmos. Let us now return to our original question, and that was about high tech. Why in the Age of Aquarius? Why not other facets of human civilization? And more importantly, I'd like to raise the question as to what makes high tech in the Age of Aquarius different than the Tower of Babel. And you know, I can think of one difference: the aspect of love thy neighbor. In the Tower of Babel, it was all there. Today, unfortunately, we see very little of it. Rabbi Ashlag, in his work called Matan Torah, makes a daring, in fact, startling revelation concerning the Jew and non-Jew. He declares that on Mount Sinai, it was the Israelites as a nation which undertook to make manifest the concept of love thy neighbor. The entire revelation on Mount Sinai was geared and directed toward this one precept. We are familiar with the story told about Hillel when a convert came to him and asked, could he teach him the entire Torah during the time that he could stand on one leg? To which Hillel responded, the entire Torah, the entire Bible, is one configuration, conglomeration of love thy neighbor. The rest of the Bible, along with its commandments, precepts, etc., merely are explanations and paths by which to reach the ultimate, love thy neighbor. That's what the Bible is all about. And yet, it might sound strange, as if Hillel was not aware of the 613 precepts mentioned in the Bible, of which one, love thy neighbor, mentioned in Parshat Kedoshim in Leviticus, mentions love thy neighbor as one of those precepts. And yet, from our understanding of Hillel, his conception of the Bible was, that's it. The Bible is one body of love thy neighbor. That was the essence of the Torah. And on Mount Sinai, it was the Jew who was to portray as a nation, share with the world the concept of love thy neighbor. And continues Rabbi Ashlag, in the Age of Aquarius, the non-Jew as well as the Jew will have that same responsibility to impart that ability to consider the community over and above one's personal needs. This is the age of Aquarius. However, there is one basic difference between now and then. Today, high tech, the space frontier, computers have been doing a perfect job in reducing the individual to almost an insignificant entity, helpless in space warfare. And what say does the average man have in the ability in the program of development and destiny of his future? There is almost no worth to the value of man. Almost no place does he have in this universe. In fact, isn't that what high tech, or as I like to refer high tech as the golem high tech, responds to a problem by saying there's nothing that cannot be handled by golem high tech. Today, in the age of Aquarius, pushing man into that corner, making him feel insignificant, of no value, is going to coerce man into eventually asking, then what is my purpose? Or what am I here for? If, in fact, robotic consciousness has actually taken over. Following the destruction of the Second Temple and the birth of Christianity, both major religions have had very little impact with all of its prohibitions and precepts. Man has rarely, if any, paid any attention to these important prohibitions and precepts. It is only when man understands that it is to his self-interest, like those people in the Tower of Babel, it is only to his own self-interest, not for any moral or ethical reasons, will he come to the understanding of love thy neighbor. Only then will he become enlightened, because, in effect, moral and ethical teachings have brought little hope for mankind in ever achieving an eternal state of order and harmony. I am in no way suggesting that we discard religion, do away with any of the precepts, but what I am going to suggest is we must redirect our thinking concerning the Ten Commandments in particular and the Bible in general. Rabbi Shimon, in Numbers, in the Zohar, makes it very clear when he discusses the tales and narrations of the Bible and states that for those who understand these tales and narrations as an integral part of the Bible, and understands these tales and narrations as they appear in the Bible is a fool. Furthermore, continues Rabbi Shimon, if we assume that which is written in the Bible in a very superficial manner, the entire Bible is considered as straw. Then what is that Bible? What are those tales and narrations about? Answers Rabbi Shimon, nothing more than a coded instrument. There is nothing superficial. There is nothing that can be understood on the surface. What is necessary is an interpenetration into the hidden meaning of the Bible, which he considers to be a cosmic code. And it was left to the Kabbalah to decodify that cosmic code. There is no such thing as a Jewish religion or religion, period. The Bible is a cosmic code to understand our environment and ultimately understand ourselves. Equally, I'm not here to negate the many commentaries and commentators on the Bible, but only to declare that these commentaries provide an insight based on their Kabbalistic understanding. While the Kabbalah is sometimes abstruse and even at times illogical, it nevertheless provides us with information that humankind needs to survive. And when we begin to discuss precepts and commandments, we must begin to understand that these commandments, precepts, is nothing in the form of religiosity, but rather provides tools to understand the cosmos, to understand our immediate environment, and more importantly, ourselves. We hear so much today about cosmic consciousness, pure awareness, people striving to achieve a greater, deeper penetration into cosmic consciousness. But what is this thing called cosmic consciousness? Is it some form of intelligence out there? Is there something called cosmic intelligence? Well, if we can heed the words of a very famous physicist, Sir James Jeans, who had something to say about those hardcore materialists. He described the entire universe as one thought. That's all there is in reality. Thought. Along comes a fellow like Heisenberg and presents an uncertainty principle. You know what that means? Uncertainty principle? In effect, he's telling us that when you're sitting on a chair and you know you're sitting on a chair is when the chair exists. But when you do not observe that chair, If you are not conscious of the existence of that chair just doesn't exist. I'm not here to explain away physics. But what I am making an attempt is to bring to your attention that what we may have been thinking about as reality is in essence not a hoax, but possibly an illusion. But let's return to this aspect of cosmic consciousness. There is thought. That's all there is. Metaphysical thought. Let's take ourselves. Do we ever undertake a project without prior thought? Oh, it then becomes physically expressed, sure. But there never could be a physical manifestation without a prior thought. So it looks like thought, thinking, is what reality is all about. Quantum, again, tells us, on the other hand, that there is no such thing as reality. Anyone and everyone determines reality from his own point of view. Quantum, randomness, free universe, right and wrong, yes and no, are both correct. You know what that means? Random universe, in effect, is telling us that there is an interconnectedness by virtue of quantum, and at the same time, because of quantum, if I should commit a crime, in effect, I can say, it wasn't me, or it was somebody else who was the cause of my committing the crime. The idea that the mind determines reality has long been a concept that exists in the Sefirot and was well known to the Kabbalist. And at least the physicist today agrees. It's mind, it's thought. That's what the cosmos is all about. Does this mean that everything is an illusion? Does this mean that there is no reality other than what I consider to be reality? No, says the Kabbalah. It does differ in some respects with the way the physicist understands reality. Energy intelligence of negative activity never becomes part of reality. Energy intelligence of a positive nature is reality. Thought, things that are distant, things that are in a metaphysical state, like thought, can and does affect reality. Let's explore even the effect of the moon, which brings with it low tides. Some even say menstrual. Now here's the moon way out there, and somehow transfers its energy to Earth. But there is at least one consolation out of all of this mess, and that is that as in the Tower of Babel, The Zohar seems to indicate that these people had complete control of the cosmos, with the mind using the Aleph Bet as its vehicle, as its channel by which to connect with the cosmos, that we too can control the universe. We too can be part of the cosmos, can be part of that cosmic intelligence. And in cosmic intelligence, thought includes past, present, and future. Thinking of erecting a 100-story building, that future building is here right now in thought, with all of the particular aspects that go into that building. The only thing that is left is what some of us refer to as that physical reality. And that physical reality, tell us our physicists, that chair may not be there at all until you decide it's there. Energy intelligence, language, the vehicle, whether it's the Hebrew language or otherwise, it is the vehicle by which I can transfer not merely information, but by which I can transfer energy. It is not the language that makes, for some people, controlling the minds of others. It is that language, together with energy intelligence of the individual, combined, that can brainwash others. The internal aspect, that metaphysical aspect, this is the age of Aquarius. Sharing thoughts, not words, thoughts. Thoughts of a cosmic consciousness. Thoughts of intelligence. I hope I'm coming through. This is a complete redirecting of the way we perceive the universe, the way we perceive things. Thinking that precedes action is what is important. Let us now explore this idea of cosmic consciousness, which is out there as an intelligence, which includes all thoughts of intelligences, past, present, and also future, and the connection with our own thinking. Are they related? Are they interconnected? Are they out there to permit us to tap that intelligence? The Zohar is very emphatic when it declares that not only is that a possibility, but that is what we refer to as reality. It is that very, very connectedness that those high-tech people of the Tower of Babel felt with cosmic intelligence. They knew how to tap that kind of awesome power, and thereby control the entire cosmos. We shall yet return to that question that I raised previously as to how can idol worshippers control the activity of the Lord, while I might simply draw your attention to Holocaust after Holocaust, in which that negative energy intelligence that can place the entire world into a chaotic and distressful condition. And yet, where is the Lord? In a sense, we see and we have experienced, unfortunately, more often than none, the ability of negative energy intelligence, the Dark Lord, to control the cosmos, to prevent the Lord from interceding or intervening on behalf of humanity. And more often than not, this planet Earth has met with that destructive force and has suffered the awful consequences. And so I ask, is it not possible that positive energy activity on behalf of mankind can also control the cosmos? Or is that just left to the Dark Lord? Only human negative activity can rule over planet Earth? As we have witnessed generation in and generation out? Well, the Zohar frankly believes that as powerful as people like the Tower of Babel, with all of their golem high tech, made every attempt and almost succeeded in controlling the entire world with negative energy intelligence, followed by the Middle Kingdom of Egypt that enslaved the entire world through the tapping of negative energy intelligence and thereby controlled the cosmos, thereby brought about the ultimate exodus of the Jew from Egypt, which led to the freedom of all peoples, of all nations throughout the then known world. Are we to come to a conclusion that this honor, privilege, is reserved for the Dark Lord, for negative human activity? I, for one, certainly do not believe that positive energy cannot control. And the Zohar certainly is in complete accord that when the opportunity arises where mankind, or at least the majority of mankind, will express human positive activity, we then will be assured of a structured, orderly universe which shall lead to peace on earth and goodwill towards men. But let us begin from the beginning. The first precept given to the Jews as a nation was yet in Egypt, prior to the 10th plague, the slaying of the firstborn. And do you know what that first precept was? I believe there are very few people, even those thoroughly knowledgeable in the Bible, can at the tip of their tongue mention that first precept, because that very first precept is a wholly insignificant commandment in which very few people even today pay any attention. I'm referring to Kiddush HaChodesh, the sanctification of the new moon, mentioned in chapter 12 of Exodus. And the Zohar raises that familiar question as to why. There was the 10 Commandments that approximately 3 months hence, the Jew would be privileged to accept the 10 Commandments on Mount Sinai, the all-important precepts and commandments of thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not kill. And yet, for some unknown reason, asks the Zohar, the Lord felt that even before the Exodus actually took place, Kiddush HaChodesh, Kiddush HaChodesh, the sanctification of the new moon, was of utmost importance, almost as if the Exodus could never take place. The slaying of the firstborn could not take place, provided this precept was presented with all of its implications. Just what does that mean? And therefore, it behooves us to again recall that the Bible, that sacred instrument, and it is sacred for the reason that it acts as a cosmic code. In coded form, it provides us with a great deal of answers to the mysteries of our universe. Freedom was not necessarily the great event that occurred at the time of the Exodus. While this is what we are led to believe when we read that Bible superficially. Passover represents freedom from bondage. But from a Zoharic interpretation and point of view, this was not the significant event of the Exodus. In fact, let us observe what the Bible has to relate concerning the Jew as he left Egypt. Upon coming to the Great Sea, the Great Red Sea, they yelled and cried, Lord, have you brought us out of Egypt to suffer the fate at the hands of the Egyptians? Mind you, after 10 plagues, wouldn't you think that the Jew would have a little confidence in the Lord? Immediately, they were complaining. Take us back. Better slaves than die in the wilderness. A little faith, Jew. Those great miracles was wrought at the hand of the Lord. Did you believe at this moment that he had taken you out of Egypt with such great fanfare only to lead you to your death in the wilderness? It just doesn't sound logical. Furthermore, all commentaries, including the Talmud, express the idea and the level of intelligence of this generation of the Exodus, that they were a dor deah, a generation filled with intelligence that the world has never seen and will not ever see again until the time of the Age of Aquarius. These were not stupid people. And yet, where was the confidence in the Lord after reviewing and experiencing these 10 plagues? And let's go on a bit into chapter 13, 14. Splitting of the Red Sea. Would you consider that a great miracle? An incredible feat? Indicating the awesome power of the Lord? That he, in effect, was the ruler of our universe? And what happens? Immediately after the splitting of the Red Sea, another complaint. No water. Come on. You mean that the Lord was powerless to provide the Jew with water because they're in the wilderness, the desert? It just doesn't make sense. So let's read on. And then again, Moses performs another miracle, and another, and another. And then he comes along with that beautiful spiritual substance called manna. And you think they'd be satisfied at that state? Or that stage of their freedom from bondage? The answer is no. All they recalled was the delicious fish that they had eaten in Egypt. And this is only one section of the Bible. Because in many other sections, we find the same thing occurring over and over and over again. After all the miracles, they simply forgot what it was all about. So what they were really missing at this point was the most important precept, Kiddush HaChodesh. That was somehow going to change everything. There's got to be something more penetrating, deeper than just an understanding of another precept. We simply cannot treat or reflect or study the Bible like we have for the past 2,000 years. Storytelling, precepts, religiosity. There's got to be something more significant in that holy document, WHOLLY, because it still maintains itself on the best booksellers list. People enjoy the Bible. There seems to be something internally, and yet, for a very, very long period in history, we still haven't been able to penetrate that code. But we're ready now. We're in the Age of Aquarius. And we're going to get there, and get there quick. Let's investigate now what really was going on at the time of the Exodus, because the Exodus is not merely a tale of a people seeking freedom, because that's not correct. Things were pretty good right down there in Egypt. They hadn't the slightest thought of even leaving. In fact, that was the problem. They got so involved in the physical, material nature of the universe, they simply lost sight of the objective. What are we here for? What was this all about? This reminds me of a story they tell about a poor man that simply couldn't support his 18 children. And one day he was told by a friend that there is a very distant place where diamonds are plentiful. And if he would travel there, it would take at least 8 months to get there. And the boat then continues and comes back another 8 months until it returns, let's say, back to this city. Oh, it would take like some 2 years. But it was all worth it. He'd walk back with an abundance of diamonds and never have to worry and never fear poverty ever again. And out of no choice, he took that trip and arrived at the island. And as he got off the boat, lo and behold, his friend had not misled him. There were diamonds lying all around. And as he set foot on land, he began to gobble up those diamonds, stuffing his pockets with as much as a handful can take. Whereupon an individual standing nearby yells out, "What are you doing? Nobody's going to take them away from you. They're all around. You can pick them up tomorrow. There's no shortage of diamonds." And then he realized that this boat wasn't due back for another 8 months, and he had plenty of time to gather up all his diamonds and take them back home. But then he had a little problem. How was he going to support himself? And so he wandered about the town on this island, and he was told by someone that, we have a scarcity of candles, wax candles. No one here seems to know how to make them. And as a poor laborer back in the old country, he knew the wax trade, and he began to manufacture candles. And he did very well. And this went on for some 8 months. And then he remembered the boat was coming. And he gathered all his wares and stored them right there on the boat and came back. And after 8 months, there was his entire family with high expectations for a new life ahead of them. And as he disembarked, they asked him, "Did you bring it back?" He said, "I certainly did." And there they're unloading those crates. That's all mine. Oh, can you imagine the joy? And when they opened up the cartons, you know what they found? The most valuable product on that island, wax candles. They said, "What's this?" He says, "Don't you know how valuable wax candles are?" He forgot the purpose and reason he had gone there in the first place. We live in a quantum age where everybody and everyone affects each other. irrespective of the separation of space, time, and motion. As we said before, there are only two basic fundamental concepts. Everything else is an illusion. And the universe is just one cosmic thought. And we cannot, as much as we try, to fragment ourselves from our fellow neighbor, observe the universe in a fragmented way. The Zohar tells us this is but an illusion. And because man perceives this universe in a fragmented way, it is a reflection as to how man views himself and the cosmos all around him. The importance of this precept, Kiddush HaChodesh, was quantum. It was the first opportunity by which the Jew and the entire world would ultimately achieve freedom. Freedom from need, freedom from lack. That's real freedom. Because if one is energized and one feels good all day, day in and day out, the illusionary possessions seem to matter very little. Kiddush HaChodesh was significant because the Lord knew that the Ten Commandments were commandments that would be an exercise in futility if the Jew could not connect and tap the energy of the cosmos. He would be drained with all of his physical possessions. He would not feel fulfilled. It was energy that he needed. It was energy that would restore the universe into some orderly manner, where chaos, suffering, war, misery, and brutality, inhumanity of one to his fellow man would cease to exist. If we could all be fulfilled, and certainly physical possessions in the past 2,000 years hasn't brought the end of need, lack, want, and all of the trimmings that we refer to as chaos, suffering, war, misery, brutality. This was the importance of this precept, that now human activity could control the universe. Human activity would be the cause, in fact, of the behavior of the cosmos. If we chose to express ourselves with negative energy intelligence, we would have to pay the price, because activity is energy. And as the cause, so is the effect. Kiddush HaChodesh was the beginning of the teachings of how mankind could control the cosmos. With thought, energy, intelligence, the thinking that went into human activity would determine what kind of universe we would be living in. We would then achieve a pure awareness, not like the Jews in the desert, and not by the precepts alone, by being told what we can or cannot do. The principle of be good, love thy neighbor, mentioned in the Bible, has met with very little success. In fact, love thy neighbor is usually shoved under the rug. How many synagogues or churches do you hear the concept of love thy neighbor? There is more emphasis on the Ten Commandments. Furthermore, how could there be a commandment of love? A precept of loving because I'm commanded to love? In the Kriyat Shema, we are told, V'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha, thou shalt love thy God. Love is internal. How can it be a precept? The Lord needs our love. What is this commandment called love? The thought in Revelation on Mount Sinai brought with it a cosmic code. That cosmic code was delivered with a powerful language. In that cosmic code, we read mitzvot, commandments, precepts. And I believe it is high time that we penetrate that word mitzvah, which has, in a corrupt manner, been translated as commandments. There is no such thing as commandments. The word comes from the origin of tzavta, communion, community, coming together. That's what tzavta means, grouping, group. Nothing in the Bible is superficial, as the translation might indicate. What the Bible is talking about and addressing itself to is the concept of connection. We are here for one basic purpose: to connect with the force, the all-embracing reality, to become manifest within us, so as to transform human activity to one of positive energy intelligence. It is the only way we can begin to tap that awesome power of the force. The principle of bread of shame, to remove bread of shame, as I explained in Kabbalah for the layman. Because of bread of shame, there was aroused in every human being a negative feeling of energy intelligence. The Creator, on which religion, all religions are based upon, is based upon. Yet, for all of us, bar none, we haven't got the slightest idea about what the Creator is all about. In fact, The Lord has different names in the Bible. Are we to assume that there was a necessity for many aliases? Are you trying to impress me with the possibility that the Creator might have been a member of the mafia? I assure you, he is not. Then what are these names of God? They are all different expressions of the all-embracing unified whole called the force of the Lord. We are dealing with the energy of the Lord, the light of the Lord. Two energy intelligences came into existence in the endless world: the force of the Lord and a vessel or channel to make it manifest. The tetragrammaton made manifest the force. Different names are different varied aspects of the force. Like the bulb, you have plus, you have minus, different representations of the same thing, electrical current. We are not discussing the Creator as someone who wields a stick. When you're bad, you're good. No, what we are referring to is that force. And the precept of Kiddush HaChodesh, that first precept, that first significant commandment, is, after 2,000 years, I believe, to be considered in its proper perspective as connection. How can we connect with the awesome power of the Lord? It's like a seed. A seed does not become manifest without Mother Earth. Neither will the sperm become manifest until united with the vessel, the egg of a woman. We are here to eliminate the bread of shame concept. We have two choices in free will: to choose the Lord's energy intelligence or the Dark Lord's energy intelligence, which is the desire to receive for the oneself alone. One thing is certain, that in this age of Aquarius, the age of enlightenment is behind the rapid procession of high-tech, pure awareness, and the dissemination and comprehension of spiritual teachings. I have presented some new thoughts, some rethinking of many of some stale, outdated concepts concerning the Bible. It must be so. We are in the age of Aquarius, and we shall arrive. We shall arrive because we shall understand that Kiddush HaChodesh, that first precept, was more important to the Jewish nation in particular, and the entire peoples of the world in general. While the phenomenal advancement that we have experienced in the age of Aquarius undoubtedly belongs to the world of golem high-tech, the field of humanities has experienced very little progress, if any. Advancement takes place in the physical hardware. In the age of Aquarius, no individual is alone, no less than the parts of the body feel independent of other parts. There is no one part more important than the other. The eye, the leg, they're both expressions of the force. They're both necessary and both play a vital role in the total manifestation of the force. And when we raised that question before, how can the Zohar say that the Creator could not control the people at the time of the Tower of Babel because they conducted themselves with the precept of love thy neighbor? Because they were practical people. They knew that if you can create an affinity with the Lord, in spite of the fact that you worship idols, but love thy neighbor, which is the epitome, as Hillel stated, the epitome of the expression of sharing, which is the intrinsic characteristic of the force, you are connected. If your human activity displays sharing, you're connected. And therefore, the force, the Creator, we have no idea of who or what that's all about. We do know what the force is about. It is a characteristic of sharing. It is an all-embracing, unified whole, an awesome power that we can tap and draw unto ourselves. That was the power of the people of Babel. They connected with the force by virtue of living with the precept of love thy neighbor. I can't say they were real good people, but they were practical people. They didn't go for the moral and ethics concept. This is the way to do things. No. Love thy neighbor was an integral part of connection. And they were bent on dominating the entire world. And they understood there was only one way to do it. Love thy neighbor. It's practical. All of the precepts are not there for religiosity, but rather this is a practical way because these precepts deal with transfers of energy. When you steal, you are in effect extending human negative activity. You sever yourself from that cosmic intelligence, which includes past, present, and future, and then one day you wake up and say, now, how did I do a stupid thing like that? That's right, you're not stupid. How come you did? Because by expressing human negative activity, if there was a thought intelligence of hurting somebody, if there was a lack of display of love thy neighbor, and I'm not telling you you've got to be a good boy and love your neighbor. I'm telling you it's the only practical way to achieve a connection with the force. When we had the ark, there it was. We could take advantage of the ark. It was that channel that provided the energy of the force. There wasn't much for any of the people around to do. And when they lost the ark, the only thing that was left was, as Hillel said, love thy neighbor. That's your practical ark. That's your channel for connection to the force. And therefore, before concluding this aspect of our seminar, I would like to share with you what I consider to be the purpose of this seminar. For one, it is not merely to keep feeding you info. While information, knowing, as we said before, is the connection, Kiddush HaChodesh, knowing what the cosmos was all about, Kiddush HaChodesh was astrology at its best. The Jew was provided with all of the information concerning the planets, signs of the zodiac, because without that information, you cannot control the cosmos. If there are negative activity in the cosmos, without knowing what negative activity is being expressed at a particular month or a particular sign, you cannot make connections. So while this is important, and we are making every effort to share with you as much information concerning knowledge, what we're hoping for you to achieve is a tapping of this awesome cosmic energy, the force. And once we can achieve that, provide you with the tools, inform you on how to make use of these channels, we then can hope that we will be a satisfied humankind and no longer with a need to destroy everyone around us, because we then have no fear of lack or want. No, that's not the answer. Let's be positive. Thank you.